Hi, welcome to my studio. My name is Kari Waltz, and I share tips, tools, and techniques to help the artist in you. And I hope what I have today relates to you and your art journey. There's many times that I'm working on a piece and I just stop and look at it and go, am I finished? Am I not? And if I don't know that I need to do something else, I need to walk away. And yesterday I was working with a friend of mine. She was painting behind me here, and I was painting where I'm sitting now. And there were several times I said, I need to step away. I need to step away. And then I didn't. And just do it. When you step away, you really open up your eyes to a new view. It's how people normally look at the art, and it helps. Also, just stepping away sometimes isn't enough. I thought I was finished yesterday, and I even signed it. And when I came back this morning, I looked at it and went, not quite happy with it. So I decided to get out the oils that I had yesterday and adjust it some. Some of what I didn't like was the openness of empty sky right above the mountains, and it just seemed a little dull there. And also when I squinted, there wasn't enough connection with the darks to travel it to me across the painting. The darkest dark was the hill to the left, and I just felt it needed a little more dark, give it balance. So I am working on a different surface than I normally do for this size. This is a 12 by 16, and it's an aluminum panel, which I have really enjoyed on the smaller side. They're not inexpensive to me, so working on something a little bigger is a little intimidating. But the nice thing about the aluminum is you can wipe it off if you don't like something. And I often use a wipeout tool. You can see this. Oh, and I have tape wrapped around it because when I'm painting with other people, I try to always identify my work materials, my paint brushes, palette knives, anything. I either write my name on it or I get a funky or bright colored piece of duct tape and wrap it around the handle. Duct tape is on most of my tools. So when my students come, they realize that they have one of mine, then they'll return it. So it works out pretty well. Well, today I did attack this painting again. And one of the things I'm experimenting with is using a variety of photos and not getting so tied to the photo that it has to be just a reproduction of it. And recently, my husband and I went to Cades Cove, and the clouds that day were just beautiful. So I took several of those photos, and I was flipping back in my netbook between photos to try to capture the clouds. And the first one that caught my eye, I'll show a picture of it here, had the cloud formation that I really liked, but it lacked the foreground. And so I wanted to push the cloud formation up a little bit, add more of a foreground. And I went back and forth between 2 or 3 pictures to do that. And then I think that's why when I finished yesterday that I ended up with kind of an empty sky above the distant mountains. So I wanted to bring some lower laying clouds in there and fill in that space and hopefully make it read right. So I'd never really experienced shifting from photo to photo when working with clouds. I usually just work with one and maybe vary it some. And this time I thought, well, it really was fall and it was beautiful, so I want to add a little more of the fall color. Okay, now my dilemma. When I look at the painting, I'm happy with the sky, but I think the trees that I added, the color in the trees are just a little distracting. So I'm going to show you how I finish this off, and hopefully you'll relate to asking yourself questions. Did what I do help? Did what I do not help? I will also show you some of the tools that I worked with and how it's just kind of fun to work on the aluminum panel. Maybe you'll give it a try. The aluminum panels do have 2 sides. I'm working with the slicker side, the shiny side today, and the other side is just kind of a buffed, but it's still very slick and shiny. So anyway, hope you enjoy the rest of this. All right, this is my 16 by 12 aluminum panel. Again, the wipeout tool is one that I used to scratch in. See if you can even see it. Okay, when I tilt it, see how you can see where I lifted off some of the paint even on the road. I just think it's kind of fun. Also, some of the trees over here, I scraped off the trunks just to give a feeling of light hitting the trunk. And I see that's kind of glary right there that I see that I need to. I'll just smear it with my finger. So, okay, soften that. All right, what I like about the aluminum, it kind of gives it just an underneath glow about it. And I'm wanting to really work on skies, so I thought, well, why not? Let's give it a shot. I did add some dark behind the trees, and I think that helped. I didn't want it too dark back here because as you get further off in the distance, the dark gets lighter. That I wanted to make sure that the distant mountain was cooler and duller than the one in the foreground. So I just went back and, oopsie, that's too dark to be that hill. So I'm going to lift that off. I just washed off my brush, rinsed it off with mineral spirits, dried it off with the towel. It does just lift off really easy on this aluminum, so I just want to make sure that reads more distant and cool. And I'm using a very, very soft brush. And when I back up and squint my eyes, the distant hill here and right in here are very similar in value. So again, I'm going to lighten that one up just a tad, cool it off. I'm picking up kind of a mauve because it's dull, and the foreground here is cooler or warmer than what I'm using. This green has a lot of of course, green has yellow in it. And yellow, to my understanding, is the first color in nature to disappear in the distance. So when I'm squinting at this, that has a little more green in it than I want. So I'm going to come back and pick up a little more blue in my brush, just a hint more. You see, that's too dark. So lighten it up. That's better. I don't want that to appear all the same color because the land in the distance undulates, shifts, and you want to show that. That's probably, no, that's okay. All right, now when let me go ahead and finish this. Okay, what I can do, I just see that's okay because that could be in the shadows. With all these clouds, you have shadows falling on the foliage. But I'm having your brain loves pattern, and because I'm shifting between several pictures and then sometimes just listening to my painting talk to me, sounds weird, but I want you to see what I've done. Here's a curve, and then this one right here, almost identical to that, and at a slight angle. So I want to change one of those. I don't want it to be quite the same or as much the same. I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. I'll probably have to, and see, look, it comes long down, then up, long down, then up. I'm going to probably have to go look at a photo just to get my brain to shift to something else. One thing I did a minute ago, this tree was directly under this taller peak. So I wiped some of this tree out, and I'm going to move it over so that the height of it is not at the same place as the peak of the mountain. And I'm trying to avoid a tangent and a repetition of shape. So when you just kind of paint, you try to feel your way through their painting. Sometimes you just have to stop, back up, and go, I didn't need to go that direction. Okay, first thing I want to do is, to me, the story of this is not the fall foliage. The fall foliage right now is distracting. The story, to me, I wanted the viewer to be led into the painting and up to the clouds. I wanted the clouds to be the story of the day. Even though this was an amazing day, we had an awesome adventure. We actually got stuck in the road from a fallen tree and had to retreat. I'll put that was one of my latest videos. I just published it yesterday, actually, about our adventures in Cades Cove. And today's painting is from that same day. All the photos I'm using are from that day. So that part I'm staying true to, but I'm using a multiple of photos. The brush I'm using today is a Hake, Hake brush. This one I just cleaned and is slightly damp, so I'm going to pick up one that's dry. I want to soften the edge that I just painted right there. I'm going to zoom in and see if, whoops, nope, that doesn't work. Sorry. I will zoom in on post edit. See that hard edge and that hard edge? I want to just soften it. I just want to blur it just a tad. So when you can hit your painting with just a very soft brush, you can blur it, soften the edge a bit. So, and that's what I did yesterday in the background of this. I painted and you could see a lot of strokes, like right over here. If I want to soften that blur, it's like a butterfly. I mean, I am barely close enough to touch. You can see I touched it because you can see the blue transferred. But if you want to soften something, just lightly stroke it, and it'll just create a lovely background and a distant feel. Okay, so now I have blue on this brush. Well, blue and orange neutralize each other. So I am going to try now to soften, neutralize these trees. So I figured I'm going to start first by tapping down the intensity. If this doesn't work, then the joy of aluminum is I can just lift it off, and I can show you that. Kind of like those trees there. But that's already, I think, helping. They're in a blur. I don't want everything blurred because it is coming up. You know, that's in focus. I just didn't want them as strongly strong as strokes as there was. So now I'm going back to the brush I hardly ever use with oil paints, and it's actually more of a watercolor brush. Sorry, I just dropped it on the floor. It's a short-handled one that I got in a set. But what I'm using it for is a light touch. And when you have a softer bristle brush, you can just barely touch. So I just hit it with mineral spirits, and I'm going to lift off a bit more of this. But I don't want to scrub, but I'm just lightening the touch. See, that just lifted it off. That's okay. Now I'm going to come back with a paper towel. Okay, when I squint, actually, I don't mind that. Now this is probably too much in detail for me. I know that's all softened now, and that helps bring my eye to what's not softened, but it kind of goes, so you like my sound effects? So I'm going to just, even though I like that, I'm going to soften it because I can always put it back if I decide it's needed. Another thing I've liked with the aluminum is I have this fan brush. It's old, but it's also a stiff fan brush. And I can just kind of jab at the painting, even sideways, and create some texture. I want the line of that road a little broken. It was too solid. And I'll zoom in and maybe you can see. I know, I'll do it this way. I can pick it up and show you how that did. Now make sure that when I'm looking at the lines that I did, some of the taller lines are definitely up close. The more subtle blurred lines are in the distance. And that actually, that might be okay. I am gonna go with my, there's always some branches and trunks that are lighter in color. I do want to indicate some of those, kind of in a more organic way. I eliminated some of the dark that I had just put in. So I'm going to come back with that small brush. I took ultramarine blue and added cad red light to it. It makes a really dark, almost a dull violet. But I want to create some a little more weighted, dark wooded area back here. I don't want to pull the viewer's eye totally to this dark area, but I think it was needed. I'm going to stop there, back up, look at it. I like the feel of the light through here. It's subtle and not quite so distracting. So I will pause and take a look. Okay, I just added a little dark in here because I'm going to make my signature with this wipeout tool. I always try to go in at least the width of a finger so that if it's framed, then you'll be able to see it. And you might not be able to see a thing from that view. But there it is. There's my name. Isn't that cool? Kind of disappears with the tilt of the painting. And I think I'm going to call this one done. So let me know what you think. If you've gotten any use out of if you learned anything, if this has been helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up, comment, ask me a question, subscribe if you haven't. I am so pleased at the growth of my channel, and I hope that I continue to be able to offer you things that'll be of help to you. Okay, now I'm calling it done. I stopped a few minutes ago and said that I was through, and then I like, oh no, that bothers me. Let me show you what I saw. I went back and flipped in some of my photos and was looking. Let me turn this way so you can see what I'm talking about. You see these distant mountains, how when one hill is in front of the other and there's this light down between it. I decided to make this another ridge, and so I lightened this up, made this bluer, and I think I like it better. I feel like I've got a better depth in this than I did before, and I might still find something that bothers me, but I'm going to walk away and I'll just start a new painting if that's the case, because there are times when you can totally ruin something that I feel good about. So I feel good about it. I'm walking away. I hope you do the same. If you've learned anything today, if there's anything helpful, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow, and I appreciate your comments and input. It helps me know what I'm doing that's beneficial to you. So I hope you enjoyed today and have a blessed week.